Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome. I hope you are having a great Thursday night so far. We're so excited for those of you who will be joining us this evening for Community Live. This is a special edition of our Virtual Community Roundtable. And it's just a forum for discussion, connection, and learning that Afro-Vegan Society hosts every month. But in honor of Veguary, we wanted to bring it to YouTube to share it with everyone, to broaden the discussion, broaden the connection, and hopefully teach you something new or helpful or give you opportunity to share your wisdom with our community. So my name is Jessica, and I'm the Director of Programs here at Afro-Vegan Society.
And my name is Danni McGhee, and I am the Director of Marketing and Social Media.
And we also have some very special guests with us. Danni, do you want to introduce them?
Absolutely. We have Kaborski and Erica here tonight, and they will be providing ASL interpretation, thankfully, through the partnership with Kelly's Kitchen. We are so thankful to be partnering with them for the second year in a row. Kelly's Kitchen is a nonprofit that is dedicated to promoting community health through nutrition education, food access, food security, and employment opportunities for people with disabilities. So we thank you again, Kaborski, Erica, and Kelly's Kitchen for providing ASL interpretation for all of our Veguary content, along with making our recipes accessible to all.
Yes, yes. We are so thankful to have them with us and to continue our partnership with Kelly's Kitchen. And we're excited to continue the Veguary celebration. This is something that Afro-Vegan Society started in 2021, and it is just a celebration of Black vegan history, culture, and innovation. Situated during Black History Month. It's the perfect time of year to look at how far we've come and dream and strategize and collaborate on how we can move forward together. So far we have shared two sessions, two cooking videos. So during the first week of Veguary, I shared my recipes for soulful vegan sides, and I shared how to make some vegan red beans and rice, sweet potato drop biscuits, fried cabbage, and stewed okra and collard greens. And then the following week, Danni put a creative spin on sharing food by creating some shareable vegan appetizers. And she made macaroni and cheese bites, okra fries, and fried crispy tofu and waffles. So, yeah, it's been all about the food, but as we know in our culture, food is more than just food. It connects us to our identity. And so, one of the big things that we want to promote and educate and share is that going vegan does not mean saying goodbye to your culture. Going vegan doesn't mean that you have to dim down your identity. Going vegan can be encompassing and actually elevating of all of those things because we're choosing health, we're choosing compassion, and we are choosing more eco-conscious choices that really say that we want to invest in our future. We intend to be here for a long run. Our community is impactful. Our people are strong and resilient. And we can also be agents of social change when it comes down to what we put on our plate and the choices we make every day. So if you're watching, please, we want to hear from you in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know your name and where you're watching from. And we will be giving shout outs all throughout today's community live. And we also have some engaging and interactive sections of our discussion today that we want to hear from you from. And your participation is so important because we also are doing a giveaway. So Danni is an amazing vegan chef and she hosts vegan cooking classes through her brand Damn Good Vegan. So we will be selecting 3 random winners from people who are participating in the chat. So say hello, let us know from where you're watching from, and go ahead and engage with us today because we want to connect with you. We want to see what's here, and we want you all talking to each other as well. So before we jump into this week's session, we want to do a little bit of a recap of our last virtual community roundtable because, like we said, this is a special edition to expose it to a broader audience so that you can see what's going on and hopefully sign up and join us for future virtual community roundtables in the future. So, Danni, can you kind of bring the people up to speed on what we discussed last month?
Yes, last month we talked about going vegan for good, which was like a double entendre about going vegan for a good cause, but also for lifelong change. And during that session, we talked about writing our own mission statement, because it is important to understand what is your why and why you're on this personal journey, because it is something that you have to choose for yourself, but also understanding that your personal choice also affects those around you. It affects the community, it affects the planet, and of course it affects the animals. And so we talked about that. We talked about strategies on how to make plant-based eating and vegan living successful, and help those ideas to stick, and hopefully, a lifelong choice. And shared a lot of valuable free resources, because here at Afro-Vegan Society, all of our resources are free. And so we shared those links and all of our resources that are available on our website at afrovegansociety.org. And so yeah, and then we do this every month. And like Jessica said, this month we are streaming live on YouTube, but every month after this, we will be going back to having a more intimate conversation. And I will be sharing the link to register for next month if you are interested. And yeah, because we would love to have you. It's a space where we can't really do this tonight, but it is a space where you're able to come and share your voice, talk on camera, ask questions, share your own experience, and it really feel like you're a part of a community. So we hope to see you in the next one.
Wonderful. So before we move into today's session, we want to highlight some people who have chimed in already. So first up, we've got Debbie Williams saying hello. Hello, Debbie. Thank you for joining us. We've also got Rochelle Parker. Hi, Rochelle. She is tuning in from the Bay Area. We've got Dawn. I know Dawn. Hi, Mom. We've got Dawn watching from Belmont, North Carolina. um, and we've got Kimberly tuning in. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing those words. We love that you are a part of our community. Oh, and Debbie's from Dallas. Thanks for tuning in from Dallas, Debbie. Freddie Slaughter is tuning in from Sacramento, California. And Santoshi is coming from Orange County, California. Santoshi says, really appreciate all you do. Love your vegan value meals and all of your outreach and positivity. Are there any more shout outs we want to feature, Danni?
I think that was it, but I did want to give a shout out to some future content that we have coming up for Veguary, because we are only halfway through. We have plenty more, of course. If you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, you will not miss a beat. So if you're watching and you're just discovering us or coming here from another channel, definitely tap in and click the subscribe button, because we have future content. Next week, we have 2 videos. Jess and I, we're going to be teaming up for a video, which is actually going to be like a first. We're going to be like in the same place doing a video. And it's a culinary connection, where we're going to be making black-eyed peas 2 ways. Jess is going to be showing us how she makes Ghanaian red, and I'm going to be doing a Southern classical traditional black-eyed peas. And so we look forward to sharing that with you next week. And we also have a special guest doing a special presentation, and that you'll just have to stay tuned for more, just talking about the connection of oral health to our overall health. So we look forward to having that video come out as well. So just make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, so that you don't miss any of that future content.
Yes, very exciting stuff. The month is flying by. February always does, but it's so jam-packed, especially this year. It feels like there's so much happening this February. So yeah, we're just excited to be adding something positive and helpful into the mix. Before I move into talking about today's session, I want to highlight this one comment from Kimberly Musa, I've been trying to transition to plant-based permanently, but I struggle finding time to meal prep ahead of time. So our next VCR in March is actually going to speak to this specifically because it's about how to go vegan and stay vegan for people who don't like to cook. Whether you just hate cooking or you're just not comfortable with it yet, we're going to be sharing some super simple, super convenient meal ideas and strategies that are going to make vegan eating easy for people who, do not want to be bound to the kitchen, whether you're eating at home or eating out. So we hear you. We see this feedback a lot. We've definitely heard this a lot from our community. And we definitely want to speak to that. And this is just a perfect example of why community roundtables, community live is so important, because we get to hear from our public, we get to hear from our community and hear, what are you struggling with? What are your challenges? What issues do you need addressed? And we can really do our time, do the research, and come back with tips, resources, and strategies to help you along your journey. So feel free to, share your voice, share your perspective in the chat, so that we can really help you with the pain points that you're facing. Okay, so with all that said, now I'm going to share my screen so we can get into today's session. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so as we've said, today's session is Heart Healthy Heritage, Passing Down a Legacy of Wellness Through Plant-Based Eating. And so, like we mentioned earlier, or if you're just tuning in, we offer plant-based cooking classes as a prize for participants in our monthly sessions. So you will win access to a free 2-hour cooking demo with Danni. All you have to do is lock in the chat, share your perspective, share your opinion, and at the close of today's section, we will randomly select 3 winners as prize winners for this month's cooking class prize with Danni and her brand Damn Good Vegan. So let's talk big picture. What are we talking about today? Our journey forward has a goal of moving from a history of necessity to a future of intentionality. And our focus for today is exploring how the foods of our ancestors are the medicine that we need for the future. So our roadmap includes the journey of the seed and talking about history and diaspora roots, the state of the heart, addressing the health crisis that our community is facing, ancestral superfoods, the science of our staples, and soul food swaps, which is an interactive exercise where we are going to be building a healthier plate, still inspired by soul food classics. So first, let's talk about roots in the motherland, our ancestral foods. So before the Middle Passage, we had a plant-forward history in Africa. Some studies estimate that West African diets were historically 80 to 90% plant-based. And there are also studies that show that when Western population, or when African population switched to a Western diet, there was a marked dissolution of their health. So historically, these diets were higher in fiber, lower in saturated fats. Ultra processed foods were almost non-existent. They're lower in sugar, and they largely include beans, legumes, and grains. And there was a study that came out of South Africa actually about 15 years ago that showed when South African natives started eating a Western diet, within 1 month, their gut microbiome completely changed and they started experiencing the early stages of chronic health disruption, largely due to inflammation. And as soon as they switched back, within a month, their health returned to its original state. So some of the staple crops that we have coming out of Africa include millet, sorghum, yams, and okra. And meat, was more so a seasoning in dishes. It was not the main dish. So we see this shift towards making meat the main dish of the meal as people start to adopt Western diets, even if they're still using or eating their traditional foods. The proportions of what's on the plate is changing. But historically, in our more Eastern diets, meat is a seasoning, it's an accent, it's not necessarily the centerpiece. And if it is a centerpiece, it's for special occasions. It's not an everyday thing. So then we move from the motherland into the forced transport of African people across the Atlantic during the transatlantic slave trade. And during this time, we have a hidden heritage that's brewing, and that's the plantation gardens. So these gardens were an act of resistance because Africans who came from the motherland were often hiding seeds in their hair or in their clothing to preserve their life and their culture in the midst of the Middle Passage. So bringing seeds like okra seeds was something commonly done. These are crops that came to the U.S. because people brought those seeds with them by force. Subsistence plots were something that were provision grounds that slaves were able to keep outside of their accommodations so that they could grow crops to supplement the food that they were given. Oftentimes, they're given very bare bones food on plantations. And so they need to supplement in order to have the nourishment they need to do the hard labor that they're doing, but also, once again, to have some autonomy over the food that they're eating and some connection to where they come from. And the legacy of these gardens is the birthplace for the nutrient-dense side of soul food. And so now that we've looked back, let's come into the present day with some of the challenges we're facing when it comes to heart health in the Black community. So there's a heart disease crisis in the African American community. We are 35% more likely to die from heart disease than the general population. 48% of Black men and 54% of Black women currently have cardiovascular disease. And these aren't just numbers. These are people we know. These are people in our community. These are our neighbors, our family members, our parents, but also increasingly younger and younger people are starting to experience the impacts of chronic disease and chronic illness in our cardiovascular system and in our entire body because of the consumption of ultra-processed foods over a lifetime. So this crisis is not just something that's stagnant, it's growing. It's not just something that's affecting older people, it's affecting younger people. And it's something that we need to get serious about. The risk of stroke is something else that you should be looking out for in connection to heart disease because Black Americans are 50% more likely to have a stroke, and we're 70% more likely to die from one. Stroke and heart disease are intrinsically linked to diet-related high blood pressure. Now, these factors aren't just because we are intrinsically more prone to disease, right? The food that we eat in our current society is such a huge departure from what we eat ancestrally. Once again, we talk about having these low fat, high fiber diets, and our current diet is a complete opposite of that. But also, there are issues in healthcare as well. We're less likely to go to the doctor. We go to the doctor later when we're experiencing symptoms, but also we aren't treated with the same care in healthcare spaces as well. So there are layers and layers and layers of issues that play into why we are facing heart disease and health risk at this level. And so it becomes that much more important for us to take control of our health by choosing to eat what sustains us and gives us life and energy on a day-to-day basis because there are so many odds stacked against us. So let's talk a bit about the sad truth about the standard American diet. There is a nutrient gap, and the standard American diet is high in refined sugars, sodium, and saturated fats, but critically low in the fiber and antioxidants found in our ancestral crops. There's also a sodium trap because processed and fast foods contain hidden sodium levels that trigger hypertension, high blood pressure, which is the silent killer in the Black community. And so, having a diet that's too high in fat is bad. Having a diet that's too high in sugar is bad. Having a diet that is too high in salt is all bad for your health. But all these things exist or coexist with each other and layer on top of each other, and they enhance the negative impacts of each other. And so most of our favorite comfort foods, soul foods, have lots of fat, refined starches, and sugars and salt. And they compound each other, and they also compound the negative impacts that we experience from eating them on a daily basis. Chronic inflammation due to consuming highly processed oils and sugars creates a state of constant inflammation, which damages the lining of our blood vessels. And the loss of fiber really allows things to stagnate in our body. Without the broom of fiber from whole plants, excess cholesterol stays in the bloodstream and builds up in the arteries. So the standard American diet, as we've said, is a departure from our heritage. It was not designed for our thriving. It was designed for convenience and shelf life. And when we replace our ancestral greens, beans, and grains with ultra-processed foods, we lose the natural protection our bodies once had against heart disease. And that's why returning to our roots is a life-saving act. And so that means the number one priority should be establishing a healthy legacy and breaking the cycle by returning to our ancestral roots. And this is important not just for our own personal health, but also to ensure that our grandchildren have their grandparents, because generational knowledge is invaluable. And so we need to be there for each other. We need to be healthy. We need to be in communication. We need to be in experience with one another in order to pass forward knowledge. And so healing our diet is an act of love for the next generation, in addition to an act of love for ourselves. So let's explore the plant-based advantage. So what does returning to our roots look like, and why is it important? Well, first of all, plant-based diets lower cardiovascular risk by at least 15%. That is a very moderate calculation based off of the data and the science that we've seen. There aren't that many studies around vegan diets. There are becoming more and more, but in terms of studying the impact of eating a whole plant-based diet, I would say that the numbers are pretty understated, especially if you're coming from, worst case scenario, standard American diet to a clean, whole plant-based diet. Plants are naturally cholesterol-free and high in fiber. And the closer we get to African antecedents of our diet, the more our hearts thrive. So it's a homecoming, not just because of what we're eating, but it literally sustains our heart health. It's an act of love, once again, to eat for the health of our heart. So let's explore some ancestral superfoods. So first up, let's talk about okra. Okra is high in soluble fiber and mucilage. So people often say that okra is slimy. I like to say it's slick, but that mucilage binds to cholesterol. And so once again, that helps to pull the cholesterol out of our blood vessels so that we don't have congestion and plaque buildup inside of our body. It's also rich in vitamin K for our blood health. And okra has origins in East Africa, in Ethiopia specifically. And so this has traveled all the way across one side of Africa to another, and from Africa all the way to and throughout the Americas. So this is definitely a vegetable that it took maturity, because I didn't really grow up eating okra personally. It's with age that I began to appreciate it. But of course, how you prepare it and how you season it has everything to do with how much you enjoy it. Our next ancestral superfood is hibiscus. So this is known as sorrel, bissap, and zobo, and so many other names. But hibiscus is a powerful flower. Studies show that hibiscus can lower blood pressure as effectively as some standard medications. It's also been shown to have positive impacts on liver health, in terms of cleansing the blood, and so many other things. It's really something amazing to investigate if you get curious. And hibiscus has origins in West Africa. And so once again, this is something that's very prominent in the Caribbean and Latin America. It's not as prominent necessarily in the States. It's something that, once again, I became more acclimated with as an adult. But the first time I had hibiscus, this might sound funny, but the first time I had hibiscus, I said, oh, this is what red Kool-Aid tastes like. For me, that's what the flavor palette reminded me of. It was just like a healthy version of that. And so it struck a memory for me for that reason. So it's delicious. People prepare it with clove, with cinnamon, with ginger, with lime. It can be prepared so many ways, but it's also very delicious, just brewed straight up, sweetened or unsweetened. All right, so our next ancestral superfood is greens. So collards, mustards, and turnips. Greens are plant-based foods that we started eating more so in America. We were eating leafy greens back in Africa, but this was an adaptation that we made to our diet. We weren't necessarily eating collards, mustards, and turnips. But when we came here, we started cooking with these greens. And they are high in nitric oxide. So these nitrates are great for dilating blood vessels and lowering blood pressure. And they're also a great source of folate, which is essential for DNA repair and heart health. So everywhere we look, plants are cleansing our body, they're healing our body, they're supporting the functions of our body. They're doing the exact opposite of what ultra-processed foods do. And then finally, black-eyed peas. So these are a humble powerhouse. Soluble fiber acts as a sponge to soak up extra cholesterol before it enters your bloodstream. And it's really high in potassium, which helps the body excrete excess sodium, which directly lowers blood pressure. And it also is a great source of protein. So there are so many other beans that we eat in our soul food tradition, such as lima beans, butter beans, red beans, so many different kinds of beans. And beans are humble. And for some people, they see beans as a poverty food. But I think that while there's associations with that, just because something affordable doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. This is an extremely valuable food. Beans are something that we all need to be eating more of, because in addition to everything listed here, or as it started off with, fiber is so important. And beans are a great source of fiber. And so we need to be eating those to support the functions of our body. Oh, finally, our last ancestral superfood is ancient grains. So that includes grains like fonio, teff, and sorghum. So these grains have a low glycemic index because, unlike refined bright rice or flour, these ancient grains digest slowly, preventing the blood sugar spikes that damage our artery walls. They're also magnesium rich because magnesium is a master mineral for the heart, helping to maintain a steady rhythm and relax blood vessels. And they're also resistant starch, which promotes a healthy gut microbiome, which is now linked to lower levels of systemic inflammation. So fiber and having a healthy gut microbiome go hand in hand. And your gut isn't just about processing what you eat from one end of your body to the next. It really regulates a lot of the functions of our organs inside of our body. And so gut health is super important. And all of the vegetables listed, all of these ancestral superfoods promote healthy gut health. So now, with all that said, we want to get a little bit more interactive, and we're going to do a plant-powered plates exercise. So we want to illustrate that just because you choose to eat healthier does not mean that you have to say goodbye to the foods you love, but it will require you to get more creative, think outside the box, maybe deviate from tradition a little bit, but find new ways to get the flavors and textures that you love. And so here is the first scenario. The goal is to create smoky flavors in greens and beans. So what would you remove from the plate and what would you add? And go ahead and let us know in the comments, what would you swap out and what would you swap in?
So while we wait for some comments to roll in, I did want to share some comments that were coming in as you were giving the presentation. Some people said, one person said they hated beans growing up, but now, honey, bring on all the beans. And Sheila was asking, what about chickpeas? But chickpeas would also be wrapped into that bean category.
Mm-hmm.
And someone says, I was introduced to sorrel when I had one of my many visits to New York, had no idea it was actually hibiscus.
Mm-hmm.
Others have shared that they love okra, so that is awesome to hear. Someone had to hop off. They said, I'm sorry to go, but they were joining on their lunch break. And for lunch, they had chickpea noodle soup and sourdough bread.
Delicious.
Sounds delicious. Absolutely. Yeah, and somebody mentioned, I talk about that a lot with people, about it being an act of love
Mm.
as far as food, sharing food. Yeah. So as these comments are coming, Rochelle Parker says, add liquid smoke, no pork or meat. Sheila says, I would remove meat and add more vegetables. Andrea KC703 says, I would add liquid smoke instead of meat. Meat for the liquid smoke or tempeh bacon, remove the meat and add in smoky sauce. I forgot what it's called. It's the liquid aminos, I'm assuming. And greens, remove meat, add smoked paprika and amino acids. Yes, the liquid smoke, paprika and liquid smoke. So it looks like, yeah, most people said liquid smoke, smoked paprika, and the amino acids.
We have pros in the chat today because
Yes.
we want to skip the smoked turkey wings. We want to skip the sausage. We want to skip the bacon, the ham, and we want to pick smoked paprika or liquid smoke. We want to choose tamari sauce or liquid aminos or coconut aminos. Another great way to add smoky, savory flavor is with miso paste. So if you haven't added miso, that's a great flavor to add in. Honestly, the first time I had miso soup at the sushi restaurant, I was like, is there ham in this? Because that umami flavor is really rich. And so it's a great way to get that deep, rich flavor from fermented beans instead of from meat. And another thing is, your vegetable broth, your vegetable bouillons. They'll have, vegetable, but they often also have vegan bouillon cubes, like vegan chicken flavored bouillon or vegan beef flavored bouillon. So those are all excellent options to get that rich, smoky, savory flavor while leaving the animal products out of your plate. All right, on to our next scenario. So, your goal is that you want a crispy, battered main dish. So, how are we achieving crispy texture, meaty flavor without any animal products?
All right. As those comments coming in, Sheila was asking, where do I buy liquid smoke? And Sheila, you can get that more than likely at the grocery store that you are shopping at now. It's typically sold on the aisle where there's condiments like barbecue sauce. That's usually where I find it.
I've also purchased smoked salt. So that's another way to
Mm.
get smoke in one ingredient, especially if you're using something like coconut aminos, which are a little bit sweeter and a little bit less salty than your liquid aminos or your soy sauce. A little bit of smoked salt and coconut aminos is a really nice flavor combo to achieve that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have breadcrumbs, panko crumbs, mushrooms, and breadcrumbs. Those are the comments we have so far.
Okay. Yes. So we want to skip the chicken, we want to skip the pork chops, we want to skip the catfish, and we want to pick things for the meaty texture like tofu, mushrooms of all types. You could use portobello mushrooms, you can use these lion's mane mushrooms. You can use pretty much any type of mushroom depending on what you want to recreate. Cauliflower is also an excellent voluminous alternative to meat. People, I remember when people started first making cauliflower wings, like people who had never tasted it were turning their nose up, like y'all are just saying anything. But something happens when it cooks where it kind of develops like a shredded texture. So that's a great alternative. And then young green jackfruit is another great alternative. Also, if you have an international market that you can get to, they often sell banana blossoms in the can, and that's something that people like to use to make fried fish alternatives. Like we said, oftentimes the coating is going to be similar. So your cornmeal, your breadcrumbs, your flour, that's usually fine. But when it comes to getting that crispy texture, if you want to make a healthier option, you can oven fry instead of deep frying. So that's a way to cut down on oil, obviously using vegetable oil with a high smoke point. But yeah, you can oven fry, and that just involves spraying a thin layer of oil over the surface of whatever you're cooking to get that crispy texture. Or you can air fry something as well. Once again, uses much, much less oil. And all of these options, once again, are cholesterol free. And I will say another thing about in your batters, obviously you want to skip the eggs. Sometimes people will make like a wet bath and a dry bath to fry things. And so they'll be mixing together like buttermilk or egg. Skip that. If you want to make buttermilk, you just want to mix together plant-based milk with about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and it curdles and gets that nice thick texture. And then for egg, usually you don't really need it, but you can add a little bit of cornstarch to that buttermilk mixture, or you can use some flax seeds or chia seeds if you really need it. But yeah, skipping out on those animal products in the wet batter is also really essential. Alrighty, for our next scenario, let's talk about getting a creamy baked macaroni and cheese without animal products. So what are we leaving in? What are we removing from the recipe? What are we swapping in? Let's hear your thoughts. Let's hear your ideas.
With the mac and cheese, I feel like that was my thing to bring at Thanksgiving. And so I made it my mission to veganize it after going vegan. And I failed many, many times. And it just was not good at first. But I think with my vegan cooking evolving, but also with vegan cheese evolving, it got better over the years. So but mac and cheese, when you get it right, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, so we have plant-based cheese and tapioca starch, nutritional yeast. These are options: cashew milk, nutritional yeast, Daya cheese. Let's see. Remove all dairy products and swap plant-based milk, cheese, and plant-based cream and butter. Oh heck, I've never made mac and cheese as a vegan for the last 14 years, LOL. But I'm gonna need a lot of nutritional yeast. I'm I'm gonna go ahead and share one of our mac and cheese recipes from our blog. And this is just a reminder for those that are looking for plant-based recipes. Our blog is an amazing resource of a variety of recipes, and mostly budget-friendly recipes as well. So
For sure. Okay. So I feel like people know their stuff. People know ball here. And so it's pretty obvious that when you're making a plant-based version of macaroni and cheese, skip out on the cheese and use plant-based cheese instead. Skip out on the dairy milk and use your plant-based milk instead. Skip out on the butter and use vegan butter instead. And I know to add an egg or not to add an egg is a debate among some people when making baked mac and cheese, but skip the egg as well. Um, Obviously, there are so many vegan products that you can basically swap one for one when you're making vegan mac and cheese. But I will also say that I think that like the dairy products do have a higher protein content than the vegan options. And I'm not speaking from a nutritional perspective, but literally the texture tends to have like more of a chew. And so you may want to add in some other things, whether you're just making a straight up whole foods plant-based mac and cheese alternative, or you are, using your vegan cheeses and milks and butters. Blended cashews are a great way to add some extra chew, extra protein, extra richness to your baked mac and cheese. Pumpkin puree, vegetable purees like carrot or even potato are a great way to get that nice silky smooth texture. Usually you just steam them and then blend them up with your plant-based milk and your seasonings. Like someone mentioned, nutritional yeast is so important with your vegan cheese dishes. It is a great way to just get that nutty, cheesy flavor because cheese is fermented, it's aged. And so this nutritional yeast is also fermented and aged, and that's why it has that umami, cheesy flavor to it. So that's a great addition. And then your beans too, you also blending up beans. So when I make my cheese sauce, I like to add, basically, I like to do a three-way split between, um, you know, chickpeas or white beans, and then like pumpkin or carrot, and then cashews or almonds or sunflower seeds. Usually all three of those are involved in my vegan cheese sauce. So I get the smoothness, I get the hardiness, I get the richness, I get all of those things from whole plant sources. But like I said, they're also great when you add them to your vegan alternatives, like your vegan cheese, your vegan milk, and your vegan butter as well. And so, as we've seen, once again, it just takes some creativity and some knowledge. You need to know that these are possibilities for you, but it takes some creativity and some knowledge. But that doesn't mean saying goodbye to some of the more indulgent or nostalgic foods that you love when you're choosing to eat plant-based. And you can eat these foods and still have a healthy heart, nurture your culture, nourish your family, and all of these things. So it doesn't mean saying goodbye. It just means taking a different approach. And so this is a part of what reclaiming the future of our health looks like. Our health is our heritage. We are descendants of people who survived the impossible. And so we owe it to them and ourselves to move beyond survival into thriving. And your plate can be an act of remembrance, an act of celebration, and also an investment in your future. Once again, not just for yourself, but for your family, for your loved ones, for your community, and to say thank you to the people that came before you. So let's talk in the chat. We want to hear from you. We want to engage. What is one change that you can commit to or that you have committed to making to protect your heart health? What's one change that you want to commit to, or a commitment that you've already made to yourself to preserve the heart of your health or even heal your heart? Let's talk, y'all.
Yes, let's talk. Someone asked, what about coconut milk? Coconut milk is definitely a good plant-based swap. So definitely check that out if you're looking for a swap. And so Bernadette says, eat vegan. Rochelle Parker says, exercise and a vegan diet. I want to completely go plant-based. That's from Sheila.
Well, I can talk about this because I've been vegan since this month is 10 years vegan for me. And in that time, I've kind of been every kind of vegan. So I started off as a very strict whole foods, plant-based vegan. I didn't eat any processed foods. And I felt great doing that. I felt amazing. I had energy, and I was really excited. But then as I got more into vegan living and getting exposed to new things, I got exposed to a lot of vegan products and I started eating a lot more processed food. So I would say I felt like I was balanced, but I was probably eating equal parts healthy whole foods and processed foods. So they're not as unhealthy as like processed foods with animal products in them because there's no cholesterol, there's not as much fat and all these things, but they still had, highly processed ingredients. And I felt the difference. So for me, something that I've been committing to doing from the beginning of the year is focusing on eating more high fiber foods and eliminating more of the processed foods from my diet, kind of getting back to my roots of how I started eating vegan. But eating really high fiber, like 40, 50 grams of fiber a day, has been great. I feel awesome. And it's so easy to do when you eat plant-based. So I'm eating lots of beans, sweet potato, avocado, my greens, cooked greens and things like that. And it's been like really comforting and nourishing food, especially in the cold weather. And I feel like excited about my vegan journey by making that switch from the beginning of the year.
That's amazing. Jess, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Okay. So we have Debbie who says she wants to go back to eating vegan meals at least 3 times a week. Kimberly says, I eat mostly plant-based and I started exercising and strength training consistently now. Andrea wants to use less oils. And Sheila says, it's so hard, but it can feel that way. And that's why we have these type of discussions, because at least with knowing you have community, it can make it a little bit easier. And like I mentioned, if you go to our website, we can provide you with a roadmap, like our plant-based eating on a budget guide that will show you recipes that you can prepare on a budget. We also have the 7-day meal planner guide, and that can really help lay out what a week of meals can look like if you are kind of lost on, well, what do I even eat for all meals? And so definitely tap into those resources. Then we also have a comment saying, continue my journey as a vegan and keep up my body movement. Yeah, body movement is important along with eating right. Kimberly wants to cut out processed foods and be more intentional with cooking plant-based foods. I also have to watch the salt. And then Sheila asks, is extra virgin olive oil okay to use? This is the only oil that I use. Yeah, it's okay as long as it's a good quality oil. And you also could use avocado oil that has a pretty high smoke point, so that when you want to just make sure that whatever oil you're cooking, it has a high smoke point. So when you are heating it, it doesn't turn toxic. So keep that in mind. And those sometimes it says it on the bottle, but you can oftentimes just Google that to ensure that you're buying an oil that is good to cook with. Bernadette, so good recipes on the AVS site. And Linda says, keep eating simply. Don't try to be so creative that you get discouraged when your recipes fail at first. So absolutely agree with that. And I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to our website in the chat so that you can check that out, and head over to the blog. We have a bunch of resource pages that can also help you if you're just looking to cut out, because sometimes we want to transition slowly. So if you want to first cut out eggs, we do have a Go Eggless page to give you egg-free options and alternatives. We have just a lot of different resource guides that you also can download so that you can have the roadmap to help you sustain a plant-based diet and vegan living.
And I would love to hear from folks, because I know Sheila shared that it's hard. What is hard? Like, if you are interested in going vegan, what are you struggling with? Like, what has been your roadblock? If you were already eating vegan and then you stopped, like, why did you stop? What are you dealing with? Because I went vegan 10 years ago, but I was eating plant-based food from 2011. So it took me 5 or 6 years to actually fully go vegan. So I completely understand that, there can be challenges, whether it's like your own mindset, or there are literal like logistical challenges, or things like that. So we want to hear, like, what are some of the roadblocks that you might be facing if you're wanting to eat more plant-based food, but you're having a hard time like really making it stick.
Sheila says it's expensive.
Mm. Well, it depends. That depends, honestly. If you're trying to replace every single animal product that you eat with a pre-made vegan version of that, that can get pretty pricey. Yeah, trying to find vegan chicken, vegan hamburgers, you want to have vegan butter and sour cream and yogurt and milk. Like, yes, that can definitely add up very quickly. But if you focus on whole plant-based foods and really focus on those ancestral foods that we were talking about in the presentation today, your grains, your beans, your legumes, your root vegetables, all of those things, and prioritizes those for the bulk of your diet, you will find that it can be more affordable.
I also dropped a link in the chat for a video that we did last month where I showed how you could eat for a week for $50 or less. And so it is possible to eat healthy, nourishing meals for an affordable price. Of course, I don't know what your budget is, but this video could possibly help you see that you don't have to spend a lot to eat well and nourish your body.
Okay, so Debbie says, I stopped because of time with prepping. I could see how that could also be challenging to you too. As someone who's been vegan and cooking vegan food for almost 20 years now, I can say that on average, most of the meals I cook take 20 minutes or less. And that's because for me, I think it's about understanding like what your priorities are. So I like whole plant-based foods. I definitely look at like in terms of produce, the clean 15 and the dirty dozen in terms of what I buy organic versus what I buy conventional. I rely heavily, not every day, but oftentimes on canned beans, frozen vegetables. I can make a really good soup in almost no time if I pour in a bag of mixed vegetables, a couple cans of soup, a can of crushed tomatoes, and add my seasonings, and then I just set my timer and walk away so it doesn't burn. I can put together a soup in under 15 minutes. You know what I mean? So it depends on what you crave. It depends on the type of food you like to eat. But oftentimes it can't you can cut down, and even for more complex meals, like if you want something different, batch prepping can work in your favor. So, like you're cooking once and then you're eating for several days. And that doesn't even necessarily mean eating the same thing every day. Like, you can, make a pan of tofu and you can have, or tempeh, or even like chickpeas or something, and you can have it in a salad, you can have it in a soup. You can have it in a stir fry. Like there are ways to like repurpose your food so you're not getting bored with what you're eating, but also not having to do so much prep in the kitchen.
Yeah, and I know we're going to be sharing some tips in the next virtual community roundtable on March 19th. So you can tap in there so that both Jess and I will share our tips because, yeah, Rochelle said it. Jess, you just plain cook. So that's why you can whip up a soup in 15 minutes. And really, I think that it comes from just knowing how to do it. Like if you really just know and practice and get the tips from people that know how to do it, then it can make prep so much easier. And sometimes I realize that because some of the people that I've coached, I realized that they even had the wrong knife. They were cutting with the wrong knife. And so you're trying to chop veggies with this little like steak knife and it's taking like forever. But if you had the proper cooking materials or cooking tools, then that can help prep also go a little faster. So if you join our next community roundtable, then we will definitely be sharing some tips on how to batch and just make cooking a little bit more enjoyable, more efficient, and nourishing at the same time.
Danny, that's such a good point about not having the right tools, because there are so many times where I wanted to eat something and I was like, I don't feel like cutting that. And so I was like, and it took me, and I procrastinated on cooking, and I have made investment in certain gadgets that make cooking easier. Like I feel like having a blender is like baseline, or like a food processor is very baseline for being able to create a lot of vegan dishes, because like, for example, making your own cheese sauces or making veggie burgers and needing to like combine all these ingredients together, like having the right gadgets is it does play a major role in like how much ease you feel in the kitchen. I've gone overboard where I had too many gadgets, and then I was just like, it's too many things. So like really not getting every single thing you see, but like having the right tools can make your life a lot easier when you're eating plant-based. But yeah, that is, there's so many different roadblocks, you know what I mean? Like in the kitchen that you can experience. So it may be time, it may be like you don't really trust your palate yet. Maybe you are always burning stuff somehow. Like, you know what I mean? Everybody faces different challenges. So I think it is important to kind of dive. We could potentially dive into the nuance of that a little bit as well to help people like overcome some of the struggles they might be facing. Um, but on another note, Sheila says that mindset has been a roadblock at times, consistency and being consistent. Yeah, mindset is huge.
Mhm.
Mindset is really huge, and like I said, I can relate to that, because when I first started eating more plant-based, I was somebody who said out of my mouth like, "Oh yeah, I eat this, but I would never go fully vegan because eggs and salmon." It wasn't really dairy for me, but it was like, "Oh, eggs, salmon, and desserts." Like I was really reluctant to give up desserts. Um, but I think when it comes to the issue of mindset, it's really important to start to examine like what is the underlying issue, right? So there's a layer of resistance that you might face, but there's something beneath that usually, um that's feeding that resistance to whatever change it is. You know what I mean? Fear of the unknown, not wanting to give up something you love, feeling like you won't be able to enjoy things, feeling like the odd person out in your family or your social group or things like that. So I feel like it's really important, if you know mindset is your roadblock, to really unpack like what is feeding the resistance you're feeling, like what is stopping you on that level, and really like examine that, really confront it, and be like, why does it matter to me? You know what I mean? Because ultimately we all have ideals, we have values, we have things that we care about, um but our behaviors are probably the clearest measure of if we're living in alignment with what we actually care about. And so yeah, that's like the uncomfortable conversation you have to have with yourself. And it's not necessarily easy work. It's simple, but it's not easy. But it is worth doing. You know what I mean? Especially if you feel stuck and you want to move to the next place in life. Like it's really important to sit with yourself and do that work about anything. But that also applies to food and things like that as well.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Um, Mindset is not part of the thing. Mindset is everything, and I agree with that. Debbie says I'm here chopping up my ingredients for a salad, and it can take me over 30 minutes. So yeah, I could see that being discouraging. Like it's gonna take that long to have the salad, but like I said, we're here to share those type of tips to really make cooking more efficient. Rochelle says I'm a sugar baby too, working on reducing sugar and processed foods. What's beneath it are thoughts. Yep. And I be bored and not good at cooking good plant-based food that is low fat. Your thoughts will always create your results. And I'm facing a few health issues. Possibly this could be a motivation for me to go plant based.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think the more that we share, the more that we see we have similarities with the things that we're facing with other people, whether they've gone through them before, they're currently going through them. So I think that just speaks to the power of like community connecting. But but yes, this is all very personal. What you eat is personal. You know what I mean? Your decisions are personal. Like so it can be a sensitive process, it can be a slow process, So be patient with yourself. You know what I mean? Be patient with yourself, but be honest with yourself. And I think you will start to see change when you really like be honest with yourself and then choose to commit to yourself. Because it's ultimately like a quality of life issue. You get to design the life that you want to live. Um, yeah. So take hold of it. You know, change what you have the control to change. Like take charge on what you have the power to take charge of. It's very fulfilling to do that, and it gives you confidence to do that in so many other aspects of your life. Okay. All right.
Yeah, we had a question. Does Afro-Vegan Society have a Philadelphia chapter? And we currently don't have chapters, but we are, all of our resources are available virtually. So whether that be discussions like this or our downloadable guides, our YouTube channel, our social media networks. So yeah, and then when we do in-person events, we will definitely be posting those to our social media channels so you can see where we're popping up all across the country.
Okay. So I think we are at a good spot to announce our winners for the cooking class for today's virtual community roundtable. And so our winners are Debbie Williams. Congratulations, Debbie. Our next winner is Sheila Howell. I'm just going based off of username. So congratulations, Sheila. Thank you so much for participating today. And then our third winner is Andrea KC 703. That's the name. So if you're here, what you need to do to claim your prize is send an email to afrovegansociety at gmail.com. And in the subject, put prize winner. And then in the subject put prize winner, and then in the body put your name, your email, and we'll get you connected with Danni, and she can get you information about upcoming cooking classes. So congratulations, everyone. I think Danni had to pop out. Oh, here she's back. Perfect.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much to everyone who's been tuning in with us today. We've been seeing the views here. Yeah, it's been wonderful to connect, and I think this was really cool to like open up our virtual community roundtable to our larger audience through YouTube. But next month we'll be returning to our format where you pre-register, we go in Zoom, so you have the option to come on, say hello to folks, share your voice, share your face, and we can have even deeper conversation. But yeah, this has been so wonderful. I hope that you all enjoyed the information that we shared today. And feel free to email us at afrovegansociety@gmail.com with any questions, any concerns, any requests that you might have. We're here to support. But also, yeah, commenting, connecting with each other is also a big part of what we want to support you all being able to do.
Yeah, and before we go, I also wanted to say that, I did drop a lot of links in the chat tonight, but I dropped our link tree. That's the final link here. So that'll take you to the recap of the videos that we have shared already for Veguary. Also, a registration link for our virtual community roundtable next month, and our resource pages for Veguary, along with the plant-based eating on a budget guide. So we shared a lot, but it's all organized in our link tree. And also, if you are not following us on our other social media channels, you will see the links to those right at the top of the link tree when you click on the link. And then lastly, For those that participated tonight or watching on the replay, please click the link and scroll down to the Black and Plant-Based Survey. We would love to hear from you. This is a survey that you don't have to be vegan, you don't have to be plant-based already. As long as you identify as Black and African American, we would love to hear from you, because this survey is going to help us gather information and data to better support you. So we would love to hear your voice. Your voice matters. So definitely click the Linktree link and head down to the survey and tap into that so that we can get your feedback and your opinion.
Yes. Well, I think with that said, this is a great place to wrap it up. So once again, thank you everyone for being with us today. Thank you, Koborski and Erica, for providing American Sign Language interpretation to make this session more accessible. Thank you to Kelly's Kitchen for partnering with us to make our Veguary offerings more accessible. And like Danni said, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on our socials, and sign up for our email newsletter so you can get email updates about all things Veguary and all things Afro-Vegan Society moving forward. Thank y'all so much, and we will see you very soon.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.